Hey everyone, I'm Joe. Today I'm going to be doing a book review of the Chronicle of the Fall of Duology by Peter F. Hamilton. This duology comprises Night Without Stars and The Abyss Beyond Dreams. Now this is a science fiction duology published in 2014 and 2016 respectively, and they fall under the space opera subgenre, which Peter F. Hamilton has become very well known for and pretty much synonymous with. You say his name and you automatically think of space opera. He knows how to write space opera, in my opinion. He does it extremely well, and I enjoyed these books immensely, and I will explain why throughout the course of this review. Now, they are set within the greater Commonwealth universe, which is a universe that he has used twice before in both the Commonwealth duology, which starts this off, and then the Void trilogy. Now, the events of the books take place after the Commonwealth duology, but both slightly before, during, and after the events of the Void trilogy. They're basically the same sort of time, roughly, with some slight alterations in it. I will explain what I mean later on as well. So first of all, I will explain what the Greater Commonwealth is. So it is quite simply a matter of humanity has become a spacefaring civilization. We have spread out from Earth and have colonised planets, moons, space stations and whatever else you could conceivably imagine, hollow asteroids in some places, throughout not just our solar system of course, but throughout a quite large and noticeable part of our galaxy. And the technology level of our civilization has become extremely advanced, unsurprisingly considering the distances involved. We have wormhole drives, we have advanced medical technology, and that is quite important because humanity has become so advanced medically and technologically that you can essentially decide to be, for all intents and purposes, immortal if you so desire. Of course, some people do not want to live forever and become something other than they are. Some people do. It's quite a big, complex subject. He talks about this in other books. He touches on it in this book, not that much. I just thought I'd point it out because the long life of characters is quite important, because sometimes things take a long time to happen, and shouldn't these characters age up? Yeah, this is why. They are just super long lived, and in some cases virtually more, for all intents and purposes. Now, in our real world, scientists know that at the centre of our galaxy that we are in now, there is a supermassive black hole, and this is not a reference to the song by Muse either. Now, this supermassive black hole, they believe, and are, I'm not sure if it's been confirmed yet, although I don't really know how you can confirm it entirely, but they believe that there is a supermassive black hole at the centre of every galaxy going, because that is what keeps it together, if you like, somehow. I don't understand the exact science of it entirely, although I do have a certain amount of knowledge on it, because this is a particular interested area of mine. And this is what P.F. Hamilton uses in the books. I mean, the Void trilogy relates to the black hole directly, and indeed this duology is also based around the idea of the void, because the supermassive black hole at the centre of our galaxy in his books is not a black hole. It is actually the void. This is something that is a large mass, let's say, for all intents and purposes. It's quite hard to explain what exactly it is. You cannot go into it and actually survive. If you go into it, you'll either be destroyed upon hitting the surface of it, or you will simply disappear and you will not be heard from again. You can't go into the void and come back out again. There is another universe as such, another sort of type of reality within the void, but you can only go one way as far as we are aware. You can't come out again, and it is that is quite important, because this void is slowly over time absorbing matter outside of it, and it's steadily growing bigger. So this is going to one day, unless it is stopped, consume the entire galaxy and might even go beyond that. And obviously this is obviously a bit of a concern to the people that happen to live there, humanity itself, and indeed other alien races, of which there are several. Now, one of these alien races approaches a man called Nigel Sheldon. Nigel Sheldon is, as you might expect, a very powerful and influential figure. He's one of these immortal parts of humanity. He likes being immortal for all intents and purposes, and indeed he will continue to be so as far as he's able to be. Now, he has some influence and he has a lot of resources beyond most people's researches, which are already extensive as they are. And they basically ask him to investigate the void, which he does by creating essentially a clone of himself, as you do, and through something that I'm not going to describe, he essentially manages, amazingly, to get inside the void. And that is where the books almost entirely take place. The Commonwealth comes into it as such, but it's fairly insignificant. Most of the books is inside the void and is on one planet. Now, the planet that he finds inside the void is not the planet that he expects. There is a image due to other events which actually talked about very heavily in the Void trilogy that he expects to find. That planet is not what he finds, however. This is a different world, and he lands there and it's very different, and the threat to this world that he finds within the void is also radically different from what he was expecting, and he realises that he needs to do something about this threat, which is an alien race called the Fallers, hence the title of the duology. And let's say the plot goes from there. It is long, complex, multiple parts, multiple characters. Peter F. Hamilton's usual writing style, which is, thankfully for me, very good and works extremely well. In the Void trilogy, Peter F. Hamilton writes the world using multiple characters and characters' point of views, multiple different smaller plot lines, and they all interweave and create something much larger than themselves. The traditional idea of the total being the greater than sum of their part idea. He does this extremely well. Now, with this duology, he manages to essentially add another thread to this tapestry that he creates within the Void trilogy, because these books go on at the same time as the Void trilogy, kind of. They start just before, they happen just most of the time that the Void trilogy is happening, and these two books finish after the events of the Void trilogy. And that is quite interesting because you see characters from the Void trilogy after the events of that trilogy end. And it's very nice to see, let's say, I'm not going to say which characters, but the characters that you sort of wish that you could see a little bit more of, maybe, in certain aspects. You do now, finally, in an interesting manner. Now, as I said, this is an extra thread. It's not a minor extra thread, though. These two books are big, lengthy books. He doesn't do small, Hamilton doesn't, he never has really, apart from one or two rare circumstances. He always writes big, expansive novels. These are indeed big, expansive novels, and this is not just a single thread, this is a very large thread and a massive addition onto the Void and Commonwealth universe. He builds on to extremely well, and indeed it works extremely well. At first, when I read the synopsis of the first book, I was like, how is he going to add this into the idea of the Void and the Commonwealth and make it work time-wise and plot-wise, because the Void ties itself up and finishes itself quite well. But he, of course, manages it. He leaves certain areas to your imagination in the Void trilogy on purpose, and now he's gone back and said, right, now I'm going to write a new duology, and some of them plot lines I will add to and slightly filling, although still not fully. There are still questions I have about the Void trilogy and indeed this duology, which I think is a very good sign of a good writer. Now, overall, these books are not quite as complex or as expansive as, for instance, the Void trilogy or indeed the Commonwealth, because those books focused on multiple different characters over multiple different worlds, types of location, and in some cases other interesting ideas which I'm not going to go into in this video because I'll spoil it. But suffice to say, they felt absolutely massive, especially the Void trilogy. This is still expansive, but in a different way. This is focused on one world, different locations within it, and more the sort of sort of civilizations, relations between characters and such, in a curious way. I'm wary of saying too much because finding out how Nigel gets on this world and how he interacts with people and how they interact with him and the discoveries that you make as a reader along with Nigel is frankly a large part of the journey, so I do not want to spoil that because it would be a great shame, I believe. So as far as the different aspects of the books go, now the characters are very deeply and heavily developed on. Yes, there are characters that are slightly weaker than they could be at that times. That always happens when you're talking about a book this large and this expansive. Mostly, however, they are developed to a very nice and fulfilling standard. The supporting characters are also developed enough for them to work, and indeed they all work within this universe. The world building that they inhabit also works extremely well. It works in regards to the other books, but it also works as a self-contained universe itself, and you don't need to have read the other books within this universe to understand it, although I would very heavily recommend it. I'll go into reasons why in a minute. And it does stand alone to a certain degree, which works well in its favour. And the other aspect is the storyline, which, as I've mentioned, is large and expansive. It is a sort of tapestry of different characters doing different things, not quite as widely woven as some of his other books, still exists in a fairly obvious manner. And yet again, Hamilton does what he does best, which is write in a epic scale space opera novel, or in this case a pair of them, that has interweaving characters, interweaving plots, and at the end of it you've just enjoyed the hell out of these books, frankly, which is generally the experience with all Hamilton. They're just fun, enjoyable books that I have reread in many cases quite a few times at this point. So in summary, this is a really fun space opera duology. I would highly recommend them to people who are interested in space opera. However, I would not recommend these as your space opera books if you're not familiar with space opera as a rule, because these would be a bit hard to get into, I believe, for that. And I would heavily recommend you read probably the Void trilogy first, because these are the same overlapping time as I've previously mentioned. It's not absolutely required, but there's a lot of small details in these books that refer back to that Void trilogy. It is very heavily sort of linked to that, and indeed that is one of these slight flaws as such, that this does stand alone as such by itself, but it's not as strong as the other books in that way. This heavily needs you to have some knowledge really for certain aspects to make more sense and to become more enjoyable. Without that, certain aspects will just be strange and you'll just be like, okay, and you keep reading, but you probably won't know what it's referring to, so you need to have read really some of his other books, which is not an issue. I mean, basically, if you like Peter Hamilton, I would heavily recommend reading these books because they are good. Space opera, again, I would, just not as the first set of books by him. And overall, good books by a very good author, and one that I have read at this point nearly everything by. So with that said, that is actually it for this review. If you've read these, then please let me know and we can have a talk about them in the comment section below. The links to my previous 2 reviews of both the Commonwealth Duology and the Void Trilogy, which I reviewed separately quite some time in the past, I believe now, at least 2 years ago, I will link in the description box below as well. And with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.